Welcome to Spirited Straight Talk, the podcast to help you thrive with the help of spirit. I'm Deb Shepard, psychic medium, spiritual teacher, and author. Each week, I bring new insights to help you heal from loss, connect with spirit, and turn setbacks into triumphs. So let's get started. Dana is here with me. We're so excited. We are having a fabulous guest here today that, I don't know, how long have we known Kelly?
A couple of years
maybe, year and a half years. But Kelly Synder is a retired detective in law enforcement, and we connected with him with his organization that is a nonprofit. It is called findme.com.
The Find Me group.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And it is amazing what you do and how you help detectives all over the country and world, the results and families. So I want to introduce my friend here, Kelly Synder. Do you want to say hi to our audience, please?
Yeah, I'm glad to be with you guys. Looking forward to telling you a little bit about the group.
So let's start a little bit, just a little background about how you became a detective. How you decided to go into law enforcement, and where was this?
Well, I was in Hawaii working at the Halekulani Hotel. I was the executive assistant manager there. And every once in a while, the Secret Service would come in with dignitaries, and I got to meet Secret Service agents, one specifically. And he talked me into joining the Secret Service. So I took the tests and did all of that. And just about 2 months before I was supposed to go to the academy, the Secret Service had a hiring freeze. So my question was to them, they said I could either wait for another academy or go to the academy and pick another treasury agency. So I selected the Customs Agency Service. And then once I got out of the academy, they put me into narcotics enforcement. And I just fell in love with working narcotics because it was exciting and basically gave me a purpose. Originally as a junior agent, you think you're going to save the world, but then my boss basically sat me down and explained to me that you're putting your foot in a bucket of water, taking it out and see how much water is displaced. He said, that's how important you're going to be to the drug world. But regardless of him trying to settle me down a little bit, I just wanted to do the best I could. And I ended up in a career of 25 years of putting about 4,000 people in prison. So I got pretty good at what I was doing.
Yeah, you made a huge dent.
But about 4 years after I was with Customs, I joined the Drug Enforcement Administration and stayed with them until I retired. So it was pretty exciting, and then wanted to work with children in some capacity. So when I moved to Arizona, a friend of mine who was also retired DEA was with the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, and he asked if I'd like to join that, which I did, and I was with the National Center for 3 years.
Thank you for being of service. And the one thing about you that I've noticed, and I can tell you that Dana can back this up, you are 100% heart. It's all about getting that child back, finding out the details, getting the perpetrator. I mean, you are so dedicated. It's not about just the glory, but that's not about you at all. It's all about getting the job done. And it's been always an honor to work with you because your intuition. And I also want to talk a little bit about you then started bringing in mediums and psychics. How did that start? Because that's a rarity in your profession.
Well,
how did you become a believer?
Well, it's really sort of a simplistic story. I mean, one day, for whatever reason, I'm assuming it's got something to do with God pushing me in that direction. I wanted to know if the psychic phenomena was real or it was bullshit. And so I asked a friend of mine if he knew psychics, and ultimately my wife knew someone, and I contacted that individual, went to a meeting that they were having with a couple of other psychics in the group. And the lady that I met, her name was Jackie Kranz. She said, yeah, it's real, it works, but only about 60% of the time. And she said, if you're talking to someone or meeting them face to face or on the phone, the psychic world can be almost 100%, if not totally 100% accurate. But when you have someone missing and all you have is a name and a photograph and the last place that person was seen, then you really do have to have the psychic ability, because then you're working with almost nothing to find out what happened and where that person is at this very moment. And so that's literally how it happened. And she made a statement to me. She said, if any psychic ever tells you that they're 100% accurate doing missing person cases, turn around and walk the other way, because there is no such animal.
True.
I totally agree.
Mhm.
The best you can expect from a psychic, the best in the world, is 65% accuracy doing what we do. So literally, I give the name of the person missing, and of course we work homicides also, the name of the person that's missing or murdered, and then a photograph, and then the last place the missing person was seen. And that's all that the psychics in the group get. And then I tell them, let me know what happened and where is that person right now.
What I noticed with you, Kelly, is you just take all the information. You don't judge it. You just take it in and allow all of us to do the work the way it works for us. And you are correct. Sometimes you're not going to be right on, or you're not going to connect with that individual or the situation, but you really have brought in something out there that's not as available, I think, or detectives do not use this source, and we do it for nothing. We just give it back to our community. And so there's no risk for anyone out there that is asking for this kind of help. Do you find that it helps in the work you do with other detectives that maybe not as sure about this, or families they're like, I'm not really sure about working with these psychics?
Well, no, the families, of course, are believers, and or they want to believe, because most people don't realize that the police are not required to look for a missing person unless that person is under the age of 12 or under the age of 13. And most people in the world think police will go looking for their loved one, and that is just not true.
Wow.
And it's a sad state of affairs. But if there's extenuating circumstances, like the person that's missing said they're going to go kill themselves or harm someone or do some damage or commit a crime, or they have a medical condition, then the police will open up a missing person case, which they do anyway, but then they'll actively search for that individual, usually 2 or 3 days. If you're really lucky, you'll get a week out of them. But after a week, if they don't have any leads and haven't found anything, then they'll end it and then just hope that their BOLO or the NCIC alert, will find the individual, or a hunter, depending on, where the person went missing. But that is, and I have no clue where this 13 years old came from, but one police officer told me, he said, that's the average age of a child to run away, is the age of 13. So that may have been why police departments use that as their norm as to whether they'll work on a case. But if the child is 12 years old, then they bring out the National Guard and everyone they can get to try to find that child. But if you're 13, then you're considered an endangered runaway. And that's exactly what the title is from the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. If you open up their website, almost every single child, it'll say endangered runaway.
Wow.
Wow. Okay.
I didn't know that. Interesting.
And do you feel like the detectives, do the families connect with the Find Me group, or does a detective, or a combination?
Well, originally it was all families, but then as we started being successful, and currently we have located 116 people, but once we started getting successful, and then once we were successful with local police departments here in Arizona, and then built a rapport with them, then we would get calls back from those particular police departments all the time. And currently, one of the cases we're working right now is a case out of Mojave County Sheriff's Department here in Arizona. And that's a case that I just assigned a day or two ago. And it's a young boy that's missing and has been missing for quite some time. But it doesn't matter to the psychic world, and it really doesn't matter to a search dog how far or how long this person has been missing. And so hopefully the psychics will come back with some information that may give the police department a location where they can go and start searching again with either our dogs from the Arizona Search, Track, and Rescue, or their own cadaver dogs or search dogs.
Mhm.
And so 116 recoveries or cases closed, correct? Solved.
Cases that we provided information, and then when the information came back after the person was located, we would compare what the police were telling us as to the facts of the case, and then we'd compare it with the information we provided. And it's either a case we solved or resolved, and that's 116.
That's
That's
fabulous.
awesome. What are some of the most interesting, just like one or two of the most interesting cases that you guys have solved, or two that stand out to you?
Yeah, probably the two that are somewhat close to me, both of which were located here in Arizona. One was Marcy Randolph, a young lady that her and her boyfriend jumped on a private airplane and went up to Sedona to go and have breakfast. And they were going to go to the Sedona airport, and about 6 miles out, they were on radar. And I don't think they have a tower there, but you can still voice that you're coming in. And then of course you're coming in from a certain direction. So it's pretty much VFR all the way in. About 6 miles out, they went off radar. And anyway, gave it to the psychics, and 26 psychics came back and said that she had crashed, the airplane had crashed, and it was in Oak Creek Canyon, I believe is the name of the canyon. And so we searched that area. I personally went in an airplane with the father, who was a pilot, on numerous occasions, and a total of 12 flights personally that I went on, and we could not find this airplane. We went to the BLM and to Forest Service to see if there was any report of a crash or a loud thunder sound from any hikers in the general vicinity. And they checked their computer, and there was nothing there. And then we searched with the dogs in places where the psychics said that we thought that the plane had crashed. But of course, we didn't find any debris. We didn't find, the people that were missing. So interesting enough, the family contacted a detective that was extremely good in locating missing aircraft. And he came to us and asked us for our information. We provided everything we had. And then he asked if we had gone to BLM and Forest Service, which we stated we did. And he said, you don't mind if I go back to them and see if they missed something? And I said, heck no, do what you got to do. So he went back, and sure as hell, they were in the process the day we were there of moving. And about 3 days after we were there, they actually physically moved into a new facility, and they only had one computer working. Well, the information had come in from two hikers where they heard a loud thunder sound, and they were headed in the direction of the sound to see what created that sound. And that never got into the computer until 3 days after we had interviewed them. So this expert goes to this particular area where the hikers had gone, and he interviewed the hikers again. And sure as hell, they took him to a specific mountain and said, this is where we heard the crash. And then we saw a little bit of smoke. It took them about 2.5 hours to get to this particular mountain from where they were. And once they got to the mountain, they said that they saw a little bit of smoke, but no debris and nothing. And then the mountain was covered in trees. It was a forest area. So he got the Coconino County Sheriff's Department search and rescue, and they brought their helicopter in, and the airplane was wedged inside the side of a mountain in a crevasse. They couldn't see it from the helicopter, and they couldn't see it from the ground. But when the search and rescue sheriff's deputies went into the mountain and climbed the mountain, then they found the airplane.
Wow.
That's amazing. So
Jeez.
26 psychics knew where it was. It was just
Correct. And well, they all had said, the 26 had said it was in Oak Creek Canyon, but then the closest person was a gentleman by the name of Chris Robinson. He was literally about about 500 feet away from where the airplane crashed. And then he actually gave the name of the mountain, but we didn't know that was the name of the mountain at the time. And
interesting.
That's really incredible.
well, yeah, and he's been in the business for, I'm guessing, about 45, 50 years. He's from England, and his name has been for 40 years the Psychic Detective. And he's written about 6 or 8 books. He had a television show. He worked for Her Royal Majesty's Scotland Yard and Her Royal Majesty's Customs Service, and was literally under contract with these 2 federal agencies for years, and he was helping them with the IRA at the time that they were having issues with that.
Wow, that's
So,
incredible.
yeah,
Incredible.
And he's still in the group. He was one of
Cool.
the first members of the group.
What I like is giving closure to these families, because that's what every family wants. They just want to have closure, and they understand most likely that person they're deceased, they've crossed over, but being able to have closure and understand and to bring their families home, I think, is the key to this type of work.
Yeah.
Yeah, the thing is, I had a father, and this was the same thing as the Marcy Randolph's parents. Came very close with them because we were literally searching at least once or twice a month with the dogs and or with an airplane. And you get very close to them, and most parents will say, I can go through the rest of my life if I know where my daughter or my son is, and I can bury that person. But if I don't know if they're dead or alive, it just eats away at them like you wouldn't believe. And then
Yeah.
another gentleman we found here, his name was Willie Jigba. The father said, I can't go the rest of my life without knowing if he's dead or alive. He said, if he's deceased, then I'll bury him and I can visit him at his gravesite. But I just can't go the rest of my life without not knowing. And of course, the same day he said that to me is when we found him.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
Was that the young guy that had the Jeep?
No, this was
A different one.
his name was Willie Jigba. He was a student at Arizona State University,
Okay.
and he got pretty well loaded and was drinking all night, and no one wanted to take him home, and he only had to go about a quarter of a mile to his dormitory or his apartment, whatever it was. But he had to cross the Tempe Town Lake on a bridge, and we're just guesstimating that he was either leaning over the bridge, vomiting, or doing whatever, and then fell in. The search, track, and rescue dogs, when we searched the lake, we found him, or actually found an area we thought he might be. And then the Tempe Police Department came in with their dive team and located him the next day.
Wow.
And it's tragic stuff too. When you send us these photos of these individuals, you just look at their entire life and how these things come about, that you just want to help people tie up those issues and those questions they had. One thing I think people are going to ask, and I know I went through this with your organization, is how do other mediums or psychics apply, or what's the thing that you put them through, test them to make sure that they can actually be part of this organization?
Well, yeah, and the testing, we started that in 2010 because we were working with the Austin, Texas Police Department on a case, and the detective, we were trying to give him a location where we thought this missing person was. And he said, well, how do you test and how do you vet your psychics in the group? And I said, well, we don't. I said, they're vetted by the simple fact that they're in the group for a year or two, and they basically have a track record that they keep, because we don't keep a scorecard on the psychics in the group. We do know when a case is solved. I do ask every psychic in the group to send me all of their accuracies, and then we put that on the spreadsheet. But once again, I don't keep track of it. I do know that Dr. Dave Campbell and some of the people that have been in the group from its inception of 21 years this coming November, I know that he's incredibly good at what he does. And there's probably 30 members in the group that are accurate about 50 to 60% of the time. So yeah, I know about these, but I just don't keep a scorecard. But in answer to your question, it's just basically people doing what they do with all their different skill levels and provide the information. And then,
because I remember the process, Deb had to do the testing with you to work with the organization. And I think one of the cases recently was solved. You sent some information about it. It was a case up here in Colorado, Dylan Redwine. You guys
correct,
worked on
yeah.
that, trying to find his young body and soul, that his father had murdered him.
Correct. And then, like we started out with the question, the testing, we have 5 cases that we present, and they're either going to be right or wrong, but it's basically a learning curve for people just to get an idea of how we do the cases. And then, whether they get them right or wrong, it really doesn't matter. I still let them into the group. And then I do tell almost every psychic, and I'm pretty sure I told Deb the same thing. If you're wrong 20 or 30 times in a row, then you need to go look in the mirror, because chances are you're not psychic. And but I said, but we don't kick anyone out of the group. The only reason anyone is removed from the group is if they violate our code of ethics and our policies and procedures that are in place.
Mhm.
And that's the only reason. I think only 3 people have been removed from the group since its inception almost 21 years ago.
Wow. And what I like is how each of us get different information in a different way. I know that the way I work is getting a lot of the emotional part or the empathic feeling of the individual or what happened. And you're good with however the data comes in, where I've worked with other situations and detectives where they're asking questions that may not come through for me. And you're looking for as much data and information to combine it to solve the case, which is really beautiful. You're set, what do we need? What do we need to get? Let's put it all out there. And I think that helps for most of us to feel a bit of freedom versus feeling the fear or getting it wrong. And so our goal too is to help support you and the organization to have these cases solved. So you really make it good, but I'm glad I also went through the process of getting vetted, because I think that's important for other people in there to be
Well, it
accepted
is.
and realize, that it's important to have that respect and ethics as well.
Well, yeah, and even though the process itself is legitimate for the testing, it's just, in my humble opinion, it's not really necessary, but it's always good to say, yes, we test everyone and we vet everyone.
Mhm.
But the truth is, all of the psychics in the group can come and go as they please. There's no, time requirement that you have to stay in the group. And then everyone has jobs, and everyone has families, and everyone has health issues, and everyone has everything that, the world throws as at us daily. And, with that in mind, when I do assign a case, I hardly ever get more than 60 responses, even though I have 117 psychics in the group. And that's just because of what I just mentioned. Everyone has things that they do weekly or daily or monthly that get in the way. So I just ask everyone to work on the cases they can. And then if they can't, then they don't. So it's actually working out pretty good, because if all 117 responded on each and every case, then I would be buried, because I'm the only one that does the reports.
Well, that's what I was going to ask you. I mean, you were retired law enforcement, with the government, and you're doing this in your extra time to serve, to give back to your communities. What is the best thing that you get from doing this? I mean, I'm obviously helping families, but how do you feel when you see these cases still and you're working with people? What keeps you going?
Well, even when I get frustrated because I'm overwhelmed and I've got so many cases walking in the door and everyone wants to be first, but that's not how it works. That's based on when the case comes in. The only time I make an exception is if it's a child and it's a person that's gone missing just recently and we have the opportunity to find them alive. That's the only time I'll shove a case in front of everything else. But for the most part, right now I'm sitting on approximately 30 cases that we haven't assigned yet. And, I try to help the police as much as I can and shove cases in front if I can. But I try to treat everyone equally. But of course, if your daughter's missing or your son is missing, then you want to be first and you don't want to wait. And so it's just a matter of right now we're overwhelmed with cases and we're not looking for more, but we will never, ever turn a case away.
So is a lot of your cases, do you feel, are from sex trafficking? I know that there's an issue here, especially in Colorado, but do you find they're just all over the board, or do you find that there's a higher number of a certain type of case?
No, it's mostly just people missing that go somewhere and then never to be seen again, whether it's they're hiking or whether they went to a friend's house. We had a couple of cases in the last month where two individuals, totally separate states, went to visit a friend, never to be seen again. Now, one of them was going to a friend's house where we know for sure that the people in the house were a bunch of drug dealers and drug users. So chances are this missing individual got wrapped up in something, either because he wanted to or just because of circumstance.
I remember
And-
this case.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
it's just a matter of, almost every case is similar to a degree on a missing person case. But in answer to your question about, the human trafficking aspect, it's still a missing person case. And then, of course, if the police will share with me that they think it is a human trafficking investigation, I still don't pass that on to the members because it's a missing person. All we care about is finding out if that person is still alive and where is that person. And about 3 years ago, maybe 4 years ago, we actually worked a case where we know that the woman was put into human trafficking by the country that she was sent back to. And her brothers were in the military. And normally I would never provide information to the family, but in this case I did to the brothers. And what the government individuals didn't know, along with the criminals that put her into human trafficking, is she had smuggled a cell phone in. And she kept that cell phone and would send texts, and then we would pick up on the text and then try to zero in on the ping from that text, because the military guys had the ability to ping the phone. So they were kicking in brothels for about a month until they found her.
Wow.
That's incredible. And that's
Yeah.
that, like, and I understand not telling families. When before I worked with you, is if there was one of these cases, I always said, I'll work with the detectives, but not the family, because you're concerned about them doing things that will end up losing a case or messing up a site, anything like that, doing things that they're not legally able to do. And I think that's hard for families too, when a detective isn't willing to work with people in my field.
Well, yeah, and that's the biggest negative from police departments is, do you want to get one report and I'm providing you 30 pieces of information from 30 separate psychics, or would you rather talk to 30 separate psychics?
Really? Yeah.
Most
Yeah.
police departments hate the fact that they're receiving psychic information, because how do they know if they're any good or whether they're whack jobs, or
Right.
they just have no clue what kind of
I
they're
remember a
required to-
case. I remember a case here. There was a little boy in a pond, or he was missing. And I told Dana, I said, I think they're going to find him in the pond. Part of the ethics that we have is, reporting this and then thinking that we had something to do with it. So you have to really be careful, unless you work with someone that already has that relationship with you, that, we could have called you and you said, okay, this is what my psychic said, versus them thinking that we're involved in the situation too.
Right. And then the information I'm providing to the police is every single psychic has their own paragraph. And I'm providing stuff that the information they provided to me, I extract it and then put it in a separate police report. And then basically the way I'm writing it, it's almost impossible for a police officer to look at it and then not actually read it. And then I explain it to them, you've only got about 10 or 15 minutes out of your life to read my report. Maybe something in there is going to enhance what you're already working on, or it parrots and is identical to what you already know. And I said, so, and then if you don't want to read it, throw it in the trash. I'm just going to move on to the next case. But then I tell the parents, the police have the report. I can't share anything with the family, but the police can share everything. And that's up to them. They're the ones that
Yeah.
have to deal with the sensitivity and the confidentiality of the information.
Right.
Yeah.
So you recently sent a case over.
I can't give the name out, but it's a young, unless I can. I mean, what's the ethics
Yeah,
on
it's not an issue. It's a public case that has been around for quite some time. And the police have been working on it ever since this young boy went missing. And his name is Saul.
Yeah.
And
Jason, right?
Saul, yeah.
Jason Saul.
And
correct.
he is what it looks like about 15 or 18 years. How old is this kid?
I think when he went missing, he was 17, but I'm not sure. I don't have the information in front of me, but he was pretty young.
Yeah.
And that was a photograph that was enhanced based on his age when he went missing. And I think that was enhanced to the age of 18 or 17.
Okay.
And his vehicle, he was out looking for crystals or, some kind of rock formations that he collected. And
he's one of us psychics. My first feeling about the kid is this was an unexpected passing. Yeah, I'm not feeling he's still with us physically. Does that make sense for you, Kelly?
well, yeah, I mean, he's been missing for, I think, little over 20 years.
Oh, my goodness. Okay.
I
didn't
mean,
know.
that's something that I normally don't provide to the psychics. I don't want to do any
Right.
front loading.
Right.
That's why
when
I
we should
just
really
give
do,
them
yeah.
the bare bones of the information. Here's the kid's photo. Here's his date of birth, time of birth, and place of birth. Here's where he was last seen, and tell me what happened and where is he right now.
So I'm going to go in and check the longitude and latitude you gave, because I feel like he's still not far from there.
Yeah, I mean, it was during the middle of the night. So, whether they had flashlights or
Okay. So I feel like I have an impact to my head and my chest, or I feel like there's something broken or an impact. Do you know if this area was rocky at all?
yeah,
Like
the
a-
whole area is not mountainous, but
Rocky.
hills and crevasses and different areas, and not cliffs necessarily, but
Yeah, I
it
just
was a
feel
rugged
rocky.
area.
Yeah, I
And
feel
then where
rocky
he got
area.
his vehicle was in the mud, was in a wash area, and there's tons of those in the desert, which is pretty much the kind of area and the kind of topography that he was dealing with.
Well,
He
let's
was
see
with another kid.
before you
at
give
the
anything
time.
else, let's see what Deb gets.
Okay.
The first thing I get is this was not like foul play, like someone trying to murder him. I really feel like this was more of an accident, but I feel like he was alive but died at the scene. Would that fit any? Well, you probably don't know anything about this yet, but I feel like he was like caught or injured where he couldn't rescue himself, or if there's a head injury or something, not understand how to. But did the two of them get separated? Is that what happened? As far as you know?
Yeah, they were both walking to try to get to civilization. They were about a mile and a half away from civilization. They were, in this desert area. And the other kid that was with him got tired. He said he wanted to rest. And then Jason kept going, never to be seen again.
Yeah, I don't feel like there's foul play. I don't feel like the other kid was involved. I definitely see a separation. I will look at the map, but I feel like he went more east, I think is the feeling I'm getting, east, where I feel like there may have been some rugged area, but I feel like he was injured or something where he then succumbed to his injuries is what I'm getting here. And I feel like there's an area that maybe rocks were kind of bent over a little bit where you wouldn't be able to see somebody, or like we said about the plane, like these trees or something, or plants covering him a little bit. But I feel like maybe there was a broken neck, a broken something in the head, and I see a wrist and twisted ankle where I feel like he fell. And if the other kid was so exhausted, it could have been that he was also, Jason was dehydrated, exhausted, and losing his way. And I also feel at the time there wasn't either a lit, like a strong moon or strong stars, because I don't see a lot of light from the sky. I see it being either a little overcast or darker. And so probably check the weather at that time. But I'm not seeing the shadows, or when you have sunlight or moonlight, what you can see shadows. I'm not seeing
Right.
shadows.
Yeah, this was, they got stuck at around 8 o'clock and started walking around 8:30. And, who knows how long they walked, but the other gentleman did finally make it out the next morning, but Jason was never found, and there's never been any follow-up.
And it feels like he tried to backtrack a little bit too.
Well, yeah, I mean, the smart move, but then these are young kids that don't, know anything about the wilderness, obviously, is that
Yeah.
you never leave your vehicle.
And the other thing, I don't feel like they're fully equipped to be in this place in the desert, wherever they are. I don't feel like they're even equipped with, whether it's water packs or shoes. I feel like they're not really packed to be able to do this kind of trek where they were going.
Yeah, they didn't go in there with the thought process of walking out. So obviously you're right. And then the kid that did survive said that they both had about a half a bottle of water each.
Not enough. Yeah.
They didn't share water. They just, kept the water that they had. And then once they got separated, who knows what happened to Jason.
Okay. I'll go look at the map and see if I can get a better idea of that area, because that's really what you're looking for. And what's interesting about the plane is all these psychics had the location, but it was, how do you go deeper into it? And it feels like in Jason's case, it's very similar of where's he hidden underneath. And of course, you've got wild animals and other things in there with the weather, but the bones and stuff can still be found.
Right.
So,
And this was total wilderness. I mean, this was not, like just a hop, skip, and a jump off the main freeway. This was about 1.5 miles in to a really rough, and you're not driving on roads, you're driving on basically the desert ground just to get back to where these crystals or whatever they were looking for.
And I'm not even seeing like a creek or water or anything like that. So I'm not seeing where a lot of times people will walk along or go try to find that. And I'm not seeing that either there.
No, the only thing that was in the area were these washes from when they would have, down, rainfall that would create the wash.
Okay.
That's all that was in that area. And that is where the vehicle got stuck, was within the wash.
Well, I will make sure I get the information and fill out the report, and maybe we can at least give the family some closure with this and a sense of peace too. Is there anything that you want to say to our listeners to help them in these situations? Like, what can they do, or what advice do you tell them if they're working with their detectives or the police department that would help them in their situation?
Well, the police aren't going to like my response, but what I tell parents is, if you have a child that's missing and they're under the age of 18, just literally lie to the police and give them fake information about a health issue or the fact that they were going to go harm themselves, if you want the police to look for your child. And the reason I say that is, by lying to the police, filling out a report that's falsified, it's a $250 fine and it's a misdemeanor. But the point I'm trying to make is, we get called or asked to look for these individuals usually a month, if not 3 to 4 months, if not years after the police have dealt with them. And like I say, the police aren't going to like my response, but the whole thing here is, they're all they're going to do is list the child as missing, and then enter a BOLO and an NCIC. Now, if the individual is over the age of 18, you can still bullshit the police, but essentially, if it's an adult, they're not looking for this adult at all, unless they know that they're going to go kill themselves or harm someone or do something that's going to cause a crime of hurting someone. Just anything like that is the only reason they'll look.
Right.
So
well, it was like
with that in mind,
the case you were doing with the girl that was killed in Utah, and he was found in Florida. I'm trying to think, the campers.
Yeah.
You worked on that case too, Kelly.
Yeah, what was the name on that one?
I'm trying to think of her name, but she was in Utah and they were camping in the
Yeah, I
van.
forget. Where they found the male after he killed the girl. Is that the one you're talking about?
Yes, matter of fact,
Brian Laundrie.
Brian
Laundrie.
Laundrie.
Abby
Yeah.
Petito.
And
One of our members was 60 feet from where they found his body.
I think that's amazing.
Wow.
Yeah. And this is the good work you're doing. And I think it's sad to talk about these missing children and things that have happened to them. But at the same time, Kelly, you're making a difference in so many lives. And it's good to know that there are people like yourself that are willing to organize and put yourself on the line, put your neck out there and support people like me that do this work. So we're very grateful in our communities that you're finding what works and you're blending it together with your background and all of ours to give closure. So we thank you with that so much.
Well, yeah, and I wish there were 500 other agencies just like ours.
And maybe we will create that. Maybe
You know,
maybe
it's
there's hope.
well, there was an agency, a retired law enforcement officer in Florida that had a search and rescue group with dogs and ATVs and I think horses, and he was trying to create a group. I don't know if it ever materialized, but that was the book that I wrote, was a how-to. Here's what we do, and here's how you can do the same thing. And the only codicil to my book that most people don't do when they have search and rescue groups is having the psychics in the group. But
So what's the name of
in
this
my
book?
humble opinion, what a great way to cheat.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You know, why spend 2 months investigating something when I can have someone tell me what happened?
Right.
Exactly. So the book is the Find Me Group, the who, what, when, and how the team solves missing person and homicide cases.
Correct.
And so that book
Can help
other agencies begin, or even maybe law enforcement with some tips.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's literally how we solved the cases up until the book was published. I mean, the same concept. I mean, we've improved things that we've done in the past. We've improved some of those things. We created an artificial intelligence system to the tune of $126,000. And that particular artificial intelligence has actually narrowed down the search grid. We just had a member just recently join the group that has these abilities, because I certainly don't. He's going to start helping us keep the data updated.
Wow.
And then start using our software to try to narrow down the search grid of where the person went missing.
Wow.
And that's the great thing. I remember a case years ago that was here in Colorado, and I said, this is a serial killer. And that's when agencies were not sharing information and the DNA wasn't where it was today. And now this person that is the perpetrator is now in a Nevada prison serving for being a serial killer. So sometimes it's just the amount of time and the patience that people have. But now that we have technology the way it is, it's certainly going to hopefully move these cases with more speed.
Well, yeah, I mean, the whole thing here is, you know, police departments use informants, most of which you can't trust because they were criminals before they became informants. Because usually when you get an informant, it's someone you've arrested, and then they don't want to go to prison for 100 years, so they start cooperating.
Right.
Well, the whole idea here is you're trusting an informant that committed crimes. Why not trust a psychic that hasn't committed a crime, just wants to do the right thing? But once again, police departments do not want, 500 psychics calling them.
Kelly does, but not anyone else. Well, you have a system. We don't call you. We actually, send the information.
You're sending the
in.
information in an email on our investigation report. Some people send it in an email. Some people use the report. The whole idea from the form itself is that everything on the investigation form that you're filling out is everything the police departments want and need for their investigation. So what I tell the members is try to fill out every single category, but if you can't, just leave it blank.
Yeah, which is what we do. Well, I really believe this is going to be a lot of interest from our listeners. So I hope that you don't mind us having you back on at a later date, because I think this is something that people want to know that is available or that it's possible in what you're doing to solve these cases. Would that be okay?
No, that'd be fine. And, just so the listeners understand that we're buried in cases and we're not looking for cases, but we would never turn one away. So with that said, just, have
Be
them.
patient.
Yeah, I mean, people just have to be patient because every family wants us to work on their case first. And that's just something we can't do. We have to do it in order of priority and
Right.
in order of when the case came in.
Well, thank you again. Dana, do you have anything to say? Other than this was
Other
great.
than it's super, I mean, it's very interesting. What you do is interesting, and it's cool to know that you are creating kind of a guideline for others to do this type of partnership with mediums and psychics.
Yeah.
So
what I would really love to see is that every police department in the world find 1 or 10 psychics they can work with on a regular basis. Whatever number they come up with that they're comfortable with, but just, it's hard to shut the door on everyone that wants to provide information. But once again, try to do it in a similar fashion like we do it, where you're giving it to a group and you're receiving it all from that group. And then you decipher the information to see what the police departments want. And then if they're embedded in your police department, then the information's right there.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I just so much enjoy you, Kelly. And I know Dana and I, whenever we have a connection or we get a new case, my energy starts going up. So thank you again for taking the time and joining us here on Spirited Straight Talk. Thank you.
My pleasure. Thanks for asking.
Thank you for listening to today's episode. I hope it inspired you. If you enjoyed our conversation, make sure you subscribe so that you get notified of new episodes. And let's get connected. Visit debshepard.com for more insights, support, workshops, and a book a session with me. And finally, always remember, your loved ones in spirit are just a thought away. Even though they're on the other side, they're always by your side.